here. Today we're going to do some simple cheese smoking using my outdoor cold smoker. And the first steps we're going to have to do is brining the cheese. So we'll get started with that. So I start the process by making a brine for the cheese. We'll start with about 2 cups of water, 2 cups of vinegar, 4 tablespoons of pink curing salt, or Prague powder as they call it, 2 cups of regular salt, and optionally a tablespoon of oregano. And I add that just to add a little extra flavor to the brine. It kind of looks nice, especially when you're doing something like a mozzarella, which we'll get to in another video, where you got some of that stuff on the outside. It's really good. In a food grade gallon bucket, I'm putting in about 5 to 6 pounds of ice. And while the brine heats on the oven, I'll add a little filtered water to that. And we basically, once the brine and the ice water is combined, we want to have that bucket about half full. So why do we brine the cheese in the first place? The reason is simple. Everywhere in our environment, there is a bacteria called Clostridium botulinum. I hope I said that right. This is the bacteria that produces botulism and botulin toxin. And it thrives on foods in a oxygen-free environment and also high pH, basic environment. And so that's why our brine has some vinegar in it. Of course, we have the curing salts, and that's why we brine both before and after we smoke, because a cold smoker, when it's filled with smoke, is an environment that is, in fact, low in oxygen. So you have to be really careful about these things and just keep it in mind. And of course, cheese has lactic acid in it already, so this is not going to be a problem for that. But again, safety first. Incidentally, yes, this is an ancient kitchen. This burner top is over 60 years old. Same with this oven. Same with this house. Same with this guy. Now you can see here, I've got 3 cheeses that we're going to be using. Borrowed a little bit off of this one, but here's one of my favorites for smoking. Cabot Seriously Sharp. Any kind of sharp cheese will end up being very delicious. It will get slightly mellower after the smoking process and after the timing afterwards. Typically we don't eat it immediately. We package it in a vacuum pack. Then we let it sit for at least 3 to 7 days. I'm going to do some Parmesan. It's a nice Wisconsin Parmesan here. And some imported Gruyere, I guess is how it's pronounced. Again, another hard cheese. And these are the simplest ones to do, the hard cheeses. In another video, we'll tackle the softer cheeses such as mozzarella, brie, and things like that. Now, we're going to use a nice sharp blade like this, not a serrated, especially for hard cheeses like this, which tend to be a little bit crumbly. And we're just going to cut them into basically the pieces that we want to have when we're finished. The pieces that we'll use, for our cooking or to give away to family members. That tends to happen a lot. If you start smoking cheese, you will have a whole bunch of family members you didn't even know you had. It's almost like winning the lottery. Everyone loves smoked cheese, so I can't blame them. I'm going to cut this Parmesan into 4. Smoked Parmesan on an Italian dish, I'll tell you what, once you've tasted it on your spaghetti or your ravioli or whatever it is, or especially like chicken masala, you'll never want to go back. There's just nothing else like smoked cheese. Alright, so our brine is ready. So it's still pretty hot. We got it up to just where it started to boil. But remember, we got a 5-pound bag of ice. So we're just going to pour that in. That's our brine and our ice in there. So we're going to let that fill up about halfway, and I'll come back when we're done. Alright, so the brine is ready. It's about half full, like I said, and so we're just going to place the cheese in there. I typically put each kind, just kind of keep it in a a single spot so that you know where it is when you're out in the smoker. But it doesn't really matter. It just matters that the cheese is in the brine and is completely submerged. So there you have it, folks. The cheese is in the brine. I'll meet you out by the smoker. All right, folks. Well, the first thing I want to mention is that it's about 92 degrees out today. And so some of you are wondering, how the hell are you going to smoke cheese without ruining it when it's that hot? Well, let me show you. You see right there, that is an air conditioner. And this box, the smoker itself, is really a box inside of a box. As you can see, there's an inner box, which is where the smoke actually goes. But there's about a 2-inch gap to the outside wall here, all the way around. And that air conditioner blows around the box and keeps it cool inside. So what we're going to do is, while that cheese is brining away, we're going to set up the smoke generator, but we're also going to turn on the air conditioner so the box gets cool inside. Now let's talk a little bit about the smoke generator. There's a lot of different commercial smoke generators you can buy, but I built my own, and basically this is an old water pressure tank. Goes on top of your hot water heater, keeps the pipes from knocking, keeps constant pressure. And what I've done is I bought a very cheap $10 hot plate from Walmart, which as you can see inside, and I've just bolted this thing to it. And then this is the top of the unit. Use a couple of these clamps it up. The smoke is generated, and then this tube blows air. It's from a aquarium oxygenator. Blows air in a Venturi type style, and that pushes the smoke up in the tube. But you'll notice that tube doesn't go right into the box. It goes up, it goes back down, and eventually comes out down there. In fact, it goes into both of these smokers. And for the curious, this is going to be a hot smoker. It isn't finished yet. The smoke comes out of the pipe right there. And the reason for that long pipe extension is to get rid of something called creosote. So what is creosote? Well, creosote is that black tar-like substance that's created from the incomplete burning of any kind of organic material, in this case wood, of course. It is the main ingredient of that very white smoke you see when things are like smoldering. And as our smoke generator burns like a coal without flame, it will create a burst of this creosote when it first starts up. And we need to be watchful of this because creosote is very bitter. And we don't really want this on our cheese, and it's really the main reason for failure when cold smoking any type of food. I'll talk a little bit more about that in another video where I talk about the design of this cold smoker. But for now, and for today, we're just going to put a little bit of some apple smoking chips in for this cheese. You can get this at your local grocery store, hardware store. And we'll just load this up. About half the bag, maybe a little bit more. Don't want to run out. We're going to be running the smoker for about 2 hours. Another little trick I like to do, put a little bit of rosemary in at the very top. That adds a little extra flavor to the smoke. Now we're almost ready to get started. Alright, so here inside my basement is 77 degrees, but in the box, which was all the way up to 90, I have a little electronic thermometer, and as you can see, it is now down to 60 or 80 degrees with a 61% humidity. This is perfect. Frankly, ideally, I'd like it more like 70 degrees, and under normal circumstances, when it isn't 97 degrees out, we could easily get it down there. But these are hard cheeses, so we don't really have to worry about it. All right, we're going to get started by turning on the hot plate all the way to max. Fortunately, the lights don't work too much anymore, but you'll see in a few minutes we'll be getting some smoke. Now, one of the ways that we're going to do that is, here we have a switch for the exhaust fan. That's in the smokestack that we showed earlier. And the smoke pump, that is the aquarium pump. So we turn both of these on right now. So what that means is now you can see some smoke is starting to come out of the can. And we can actually go in this other smoker, because I have a tube that goes into both, and you can see smoke is starting to come out. You can see it's quite white, and that indicates a presence of high amounts of creosote, which is what you expect when you first start turning on the smoke. It's got to burn for just a little while, and that smoke will get less white and more clear, and that's exactly what we're looking for when we're smoking cheese. Now if you look, you'll notice the smoke is almost invisible, but you can just barely see it. That is perfect smoke right there. That's what we want. All right, let's open her up. Oh yeah. We'll take out our electronic thermometer. We see the box is now full of smoke, as it should be. We'll turn off the exhaust fan. By the way, that's that can up there at the very top. You can barely see it. That's the input for the exhaust. And that's what goes out of the stack up there. So we're going to get our cheese in here, and we'll meet back after that. It's been an hour. We're looking at the cheese now. What I usually like to do is flip them over, just so that where the smoke's coming out of here from the smoke generator hits that side. So we'll just flip them over real quick. As you can see, the brine's still on them. They're still wet. They're still quite cool, as the cooling is working very well. Our smoke is a little small, so you know what? We're going to crank up the smoker again. Crank up the generator again, I meant to say. And we'll come back to you in another hour when the cheese will be ready to come out. All right, we're going to, sorry for the noise in the background, but now we're going to open up the cold smoker, and our cheese is complete, and we will put it back into the brine. So let me do that. All right, so we brought our brine cheese up here, and now we're going to pull these out of the brine, and if you want, feel free to wash them, but I tend to like to leave the brine that clings to the cheese right on it. The only other thing that's on there is a little bit of that oregano, and I think that kind of gives it a bit of extra flavor. We're going to vacuum pack these using a food saver. And this is just a cheap and inexpensive food saver. You don't need to get some fancy crazy one unless you plan on doing this as a business, in which case I would recommend probably a high-end one. But at any rate, we're going to do this today using this basic food saver vacuum packager, and I will show you how we're going to do that. So we've got all of our cheese out of the brine. We'll be using these pre-made bags. Now you can use the long tube bags where you have to seal one end and then cut them to length if you want, but these are just so much more convenient. Available on Amazon. Links below the description. It helps the channel if you click through there, so we much appreciate it. It's really quite simple. You just open the bag, you select your cheese, place it in the bag, get it to go down at the bottom, and you place the bag into Food Saver, let it vacuum up. And that's about it. We're going to leave this cheese in this vacuum pack for at least 3 days. I recommend as much as 7 before trying it, because that allows the smoke to continue to penetrate and to get you know, a kind of a continuous smoke flavor throughout the cheese. And it does mellow the cheese out a little bit. So that's it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so the cheese is packaged, as you can see, and has my famous Smokey Dave's Gourmet Top Shelf Smoked Cheese labeling. So that's it. Take this cheese, put it in the fridge for 3 days minimum, up to 7 days. Thank you everyone for joining me, Smokey Dave, on Smokey Dave Presents. If you like this video, consider giving us a big thumbs up by smashing that like button and possibly even subscribing, because while this is the first video, we're going to continue to do a whole bunch of really interesting and perhaps some very strange projects. One of the projects we got lined up is we're going to build a cold smoker out of an old stainless steel dishwasher. So stay tuned for that one. And we'll be doing all kinds of other things like that, different recipes, different ways you can smoke meats and cheeses. All of this is coming up on Smokey Dave Presents. Thank you for watching.